It is time for us to get to our college football playoff picks. And I gave mine a little bit away yesterday when I told you that I think Tennessee makes the college football playoff. But let's go ahead and get into that right now. Do you want to begin with the individual bowl games, as those that are fans of other SEC schools will get an idea of where we stand? So how do you want to
Let,
set this up there, Caleb Calhoun?
let's start with our Power 5 champions, and then we'll go to the individual bowl games. Let's name the Power 5 champions of each conference, both of us.
Okay, Power 5 champions. I have Clemson winning the ACC. You and I both. You're a little bit more down on Florida State, but I think they're overhyped. SEC, I've got Georgia winning. The Big Ten, I've got Ohio State winning just because I think that's a coin flip, and Michigan won it last year. Pac 12, I've got Southern California winning. And then the Big 12, I've got Oklahoma.
That's
Out
a
of five.
shock to me. I thought you weren't that high on Brent Venables this year.
I'm not. I'm not, but I decided to go in that direction because I felt like I was doing chalk with the rest of them.
Okay. I'm mostly with you. I'm Clemson. I'm LSU for the SEC. I am Ohio State for the Big Ten. I think they should win it this year. I'm USC for the Pac-12. Should have won it last year. And I actually think Kansas State repeats as Big 12 champs, but I think Kansas State and Clemson are conference champs by default. I just think the ACC and Big 12 are going to be bad this year.
Yep. Okay. I can roll with that. And then if we look at, so then we want to go with the New Year's Six Bowl projections. Mine are, oh, my screen blipped. My New Year's Six Bowl projections are Cotton Bowl, Oklahoma, Tulane, Fiesta Bowl, Michigan, LSU, Orange Bowl, Florida State, Alabama, Peach Bowl, Penn State, Washington.
All right. Mine, Cotton Bowl. My group of 5 team is not Tulane, but UTSA, who Tennessee plays this year, and Penn State. I think UTSA may go 11-1 and only lose to Tennessee. So I've got UTSA and Penn State because there's going to be 3 Big Ten teams make New Year's Six bowl games, and we know who those 3 are going to be before the year starts. It's just so obvious. There's like 3 in the Big Ten and then everybody else.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so I've got Kansas State, since they will win the Fiesta Bowl. I've got them playing Oregon, who I think will play USC for the Pac-12 title, but will lose. I've got a repeat in the Orange Bowl, Tennessee and Clemson. I've got it happening again this year. And then I've got Georgia in the Peach Bowl playing Michigan. I think neither one of those teams wins their conference, but they'll be highly touted in their leagues.
College football playoff picks. Here's what I got. Tennessee, Clemson in the Rose Bowl. Why do they get shipped out there? Because I believe Georgia will be the number 1 seed, which essentially gives them regional home field advantage, and they will play Ohio State in the Sugar Bowl. So those are my college football playoff picks. Yes, I have Tennessee making the college football playoff, but not winning the SEC, what would have played out last year had it not been for the South Carolina loss. I think the season plays out this year almost exactly like it played out last year, with the exception of Tennessee does not beat Georgia and Tennessee does not beat Alabama. So I think Tennessee's going to play at a very high level, and I think Tennessee's defense is going to be better. So I think that Tennessee is a 2-loss regular season team, and that they will make the playoff with 2 losses and be able to slip in there without playing in the SEC championship game.
So who do you think's going to win those 2 playoff games? Who's playing for the national title to you?
You're going to say that. I think Tennessee is 1 or 2 years away from being in the national championship game. So I'm going to say that Clemson is able to win, is able to beat Tennessee, despite the fact that Tennessee handled them last year. I would not be surprised. I'm basically going on an escalating scale. I think Georgia beats Ohio State. But as far as drama, and not just for this show and our website, but for content, I would love to see two SEC teams. So probably secretly, I'm rooting for Tennessee and Georgia to be in the national championship game, or even Georgia and Alabama, because you know how big of an SEC guy I am, and as respected as the SEC is, I still think it's underrated. So that's where I stand on that. I think Tennessee's a year away from making the national championship game, but on track to make the college football playoff this year.
All right, and last one before I go on to mine, I need to know your national title pick: Georgia or Clemson?
I don't want to do it because it hasn't been done since Minnesota did it in the 40s, 3 years in a row. But I'm going to take Georgia to win it again.
Wow, Dave going for the three-peat. Look at you.
Now, Rocky Top Tom asked me, Dave, if Alabama and Georgia both beat us and you have us in the playoff, that means theoretically there are 3 SEC teams in the playoffs. No. I don't think that. I think Alabama loses another game. I like Alabama to beat Tennessee because it's in Tuscaloosa, but I don't think Alabama is good enough to have a record at the end of November to get in over Tennessee. So despite the win, I think it's going to be a very similar, last year, Alabama was ahead of Tennessee in the college football playoff rankings, right? And everybody's like,
right,
this seems pretty simple. They played each other. I think you're going to have the same thing happen in reverse this year.
So do you realize how unpopular Tennessee is going to be if they're a 2-loss non-conference champion that backs into the college football playoff and then they lose in the first game of the college football playoff? Do you realize how unpopular that's going to be with the nation?
Yeah, I do. And I think that you kind of brought this to my attention, that I think you're going to see the first year in which I hate to say this, but the conference championship game has a little bit less meaning than it did before. I think this is going to be the first year where you're going to see, according to my prediction, I think this is the first year that you're going to see that have slightly less of an impact than it should have, at least in my heart. Kind of like the SEC basketball tournament or conference basketball tournament. So I think you're going to see a little bit of that this year. And it hurts me to say it, but that's just how I see things playing out when I went through all of the schedules and did them kind of individually.
All right, so on my end, college football playoff, since I have LSU winning the SEC, I've got them going to the college football playoff, but I don't think they'll be a top seed. I think just playing in the SEC, they'll probably stumble somewhere, but during the regular season, but still win it. And I'll have them going to the Rose Bowl as a result, facing USC, who I think will win the Pac-12 and by default will go undefeated. My top seed on the year is actually Ohio State, because I think they're going to coast through the Big Ten and they'll get the number 1 seed and they'll get to play in the Sugar Bowl. But that won't be as much of a home field for them because they're going to play Alabama. So I got Ohio State facing Alabama in the Sugar Bowl, LSU facing USC in the Rose Bowl. I've got LSU beating USC and Ohio State beating Alabama. And for my national championship, Dave, I got Ohio State beating LSU. I think if Ryan Day doesn't win the national title this year, you got to fire him.
Fire him?
Yes.
You can't fire somebody that's in the national championship game.
Ohio State is way too loaded with talent this year. They are one of the best track records you can look to, Dave, for the best team in college football is who's got the most first-round NFL draft picks. Ohio State laps the field this year in first-round picks for next year, I mean. And if they don't win it, that's a big issue for Ryan Day. They almost beat Georgia last year. And
yeah. Well,
they are the one team outside of the South that is on par with Southern teams talent-wise.
I'm trying to imagine Caleb Calhoun being the athletic director at Ohio State. And he says, all right, guys, private meeting. It's August. The season hasn't started yet. But if this Ryan guy makes the national championship game and doesn't win it, I don't care if it's the last second field goal or whatever, we're going to fire him. And somebody raises their hand and says, AD Calhoun, that seems a little harsh. What if he doesn't make the college football playoff? Well, then clearly we have to shoot him.
No, I'm firing for calls if he doesn't make the. I will say that's a breach of contract if he doesn't make the college football playoff.
Oh,
you should. Okay, Ohio State and LSU, when you have the programs rolling, you should be in the college football playoff more years than you're not. Well, now when it's 12 teams, you should be in it every year. Ohio State, Alabama, Ohio State, LSU, and Georgia, those three schools, if it's a 12-team playoff, but the coach I hire, you get 1 year. For the rest of your life after that, you better be in the college football playoff every year, the 12-team playoff, because those are way too easy of jobs.
Let me ask you this. If you're Tennessee, would you rather win the SEC and not make the college football playoff, or not play in the SEC championship game and lose in the semifinals of the college football playoff?
Okay.
I'd rather have a ring.
Yeah, the SEC championship ring matters. Now, in a year, it's easily win the SEC title. But if you win the SEC title in a year, you're in the college football playoff with 12 teams. That's not a question at that point. So yeah, I say take the ring.
Well, LSU might have not gotten in last year.
Had they won it?
Yeah.
Well, no. I'm talking about when the playoff goes to 12 teams.
Oh, yeah, when it goes to 12 teams. I'm talking this upcoming year.
And this is, I'm seeing on the message boards, I just have to point this out. Dave, this is right. Ryan Day is Mark Richt. He's Mark Richt. And Mark Richt got fired because it was actually I don't know if it was fully his fault. I think Georgia at the time carried themselves with too much integrity. I know that's a bad thing to say, but you got to sacrifice a little integrity if you're trying to win.
On the message board, Richt is Day, Day is Richt, Finkel is Einhorn, Einhorn is Finkel. Reference to the Ace Ventura. Do you remember that?
Oh gosh, it's been so long since I saw that movie.
Finkel is Einhorn, Einhorn is Finkel. By the way, if you go back and watch that movie, the most non-politically correct movie in this day and age that you can imagine. I mean, yeah, it just makes fun of transgender people, and you could not put that movie out nowadays. It would be picketed. And there are several comedies from that era that you could say that about.